Sector Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 7 of the Null Sector Podcast, home of the vibes, shelter for the baseline enthusiasts, and hangout session for just about everyone in between. I am Null, also known as Jake, and let's chill. Alright, holy shit. Before we get started, I didn't even put on my timer because I'm a sussy little bitch boy. But that's going now. So, let's get started by opening our Monster Energy Ultra PT can, because I'm now an addict to Monster. That's not true. However, I do drink it for my job. Oh yeah. Anyway, it's time for our small talk update, which I totally forgot to say, but that's okay, because believe it or not, we're actually back, which I have a theme of saying over and over again in everything that I do and all the content that I make. But believe it or not, we are actually back. It has been so long that I legitimately don't remember the last time that I released an episode. So let's just take a gander while I still can. I believe the last time I released an episode, it was episode 6. Yep. Oh my God. I was going to say, I think it's been about a year, but quite literally it says 1 year ago on YouTube. I don't know the exact date. April 3rd. Holy fucking shit. That's actually really weird because today that I'm recording this is April 6th. So we are 3 days shy of an actual complete year since the last episode. But we're back. Now, as you can see, if you were watching this previously on the video version, not quite the same background. It's a little different. And I didn't want it to be what it is today. I don't mind it, but I had wished that it would be something different. However, it just didn't work out. Maybe in the future, we will have a nicer setup at some point in time. But most likely for now, we'll just have this camera down angle from my current setup, which I will also talk about later in a different topic. But for now, as of today, we have... It's been so long. So last time that I did this, I have my notes somewhere. I'm now using 2 monitors in an actual setup, whereas before I was not renting, but my local library had a creator space with a studio that we could go into, and I would schedule times to go in there and record. It was really nice. They had a double light setup with actual C-stands and stuff. And they had a little desk for me to record at. It worked. My old laptop is actually in the last video. It's in most of the videos. But man, it's been a while. My facial hair is a little bigger. My hair is longer. I no longer have painted nails, which is, I probably would if I could. Doesn't really work out at the moment. But a lot has changed. I still have the same mic, even though the one I used to use did not belong to me. It belonged to the library. However, this one is mine, which may or may not be older. It probably is. I got it in like 2013. Anyway, almost all the topics that I have to talk about today are directly related to what I would say now in the small talk update. So I don't have too much to say. Other than we're back, baby. We're back, baby. Finally have a chance to make content again, which I really just I didn't have a way to do it up until now. And that happens a lot to me, unfortunately. I have a long history of not being able to make stuff due to usually circumstances outside my control. But man, it's finally changing. So it's for the best. But there's no reason to sit here when we have topics to discuss. So on we go to our next section, which is content update. Now this one, It's a little bit spicy because last time that I did a content update was a year ago. So things have changed. So much has changed. All of this kind of ties into each other in the first couple topics, like I said. But as far as things that I've actually made or am working on and have released, I do have a new song that has been released and put out into the world. I technically have a couple. I'm not sure I'd call them new because I was working on them previously. Also, pause for a sip of Peachy Keen Monster. Oh, yeah. Previously, I was working on the Starclad EP. Unfortunately, that is no longer happening. Well, it did happen. I just decided to not officially release it. It has been, it's been about a full year, like we've been saying, but it's crazy how fast I have increased my producing skills since a year ago. Back then I was working on my old Dell G7 laptop, which has been horrible since the day I bought it, even though back in 2018 it was supposed to be pretty decent, but it's had issues for forever. Anyway, I was working on the Starclad EP, which had 3 songs, Starclad, Dissension, and Concilium. However, I've been working on a lot of new shit since then. There was a good, probably 6-7 months where I didn't work on anything because I couldn't. But since I have started working on stuff again, I've been a lot happier with the quality of things I'm putting out. I've learned a lot about mixing and mastering, and I've still got a hell of a long way to go. I really, really wish I could just go in and take courses on mixing and mastering audio in general. That would make a big difference. But I've made some progress. As of today, actually, I was planning on recording this about 3 hours ago, but I couldn't because I didn't have the things I needed in place to get my audio where I wanted it. The place that I'm recording now has a lot of ambient noise, which is hard to get rid of. I also live right next to a gate to an apartment complex, so there's a lot of noise coming from that direction, which is whatever. But the stuff that's actually the problem for studio quality level vocals or voiceover, my air conditioner is loud, my fridge is right there, which is actually surprisingly loud. I didn't realize how much noise was coming from that till today. My fan on my desk, it's a little tiny, I don't even know what you would call this, but a little tiny desk fan. It's probably 12 volt or less. It's tiny. That can be loud, which is turned off. My laptop is right next to me as well, which I have taken apart completely and dissected recently, so it's not as loud anymore, but it can still get loud if I'm running stuff on it. And then my laptop is sitting on top of I forget what they used to call them, a cooling mount. It's a little platform that my laptop sits on it, and there's fans embedded in the platform. And that thing was kicking out a decent amount of noise as well. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sources of white noise. I did my best to EQ it out earlier today. It was not happening. It was full spectrum EQ all the way down to sub levels up to the high end. There was less on the high end from 10,000 to above. There wasn't as bad, but you could sweep through the whole spectrum and it's just white noise the entire way through. So there was not really any saving it. And I want to pull it up because I want the exact one that I have here. I've talked about this before, but I've been trying to do free alternatives to plugins. That can only take you so far, but one that's pretty popular is a denoiser by, I'm really not sure. Let's throw it on here. I don't think Ableton will mind. It's by Bertram, the Bertram denoiser. You guys have probably heard of it if you try to look into this kind of thing before. It's okay. That is as far as I'd take describing the Bertram noise filter, the denoiser. But it was not going to work with this. It's a very kind of harsh cut at frequencies. There's not too much dynamics going on there, so it just didn't work for me. And my audio kind of sounded like shit. And the past episodes that I've done have sounded pretty damn good. Actually, the 6th one, the most recent one, I listened to on my way home from work yesterday. I have a pretty long drive, and I was pretty surprised by how decent it sounded. It made me want to work on my podcast again, and I refused to make the quality worse. So I spent like 4 hours today coming up with solutions to rein my audio quality in, which this is all part of the content update, I promise. Anyway, the only way to get your quality better when it's bad and you don't have any money is to do a wink wonk, to acquire software, you know, which I don't do at all. Never would do that. Anyway, definitely unrelated to that, I would endorse Waves. They are a audio plugin company, which you may have heard of before. I believe it's Waves with an S, if I'm right. Yes. After a quick search trying to find some solutions for my problem, I needed a background noise remover. I basically lost access to everything. So the main problem here, which I'll get into later, is I'm on a completely different setup since last time. So I lost access to all my plugins, everything, which is a pain in the ass to switch over and get everything working again. So I needed a new solution. Waves has some plugins that are powered by neural networks. I don't know if they're sending data out to actual servers or if it's a very basic branded neural network, but it's just kind of a basic algorithm that's running on your own CPU. I don't know, but they have a few plugins. They have Clarify, de-esser, and debreather or debreather. And man, does the quality bump up like 1,000 degrees when you turn them on and turn them off. I have no problem showing you guys again. I did this before. I actually talked about it in my last episode, but my whole vocal chain for podcast right now is just a vocal presence EQ that I worked on. I dipped out all of the bad frequencies. EQing in general is just something that I'm constantly learning, and I'll probably never be the best at it. I always want to be in a state of learning when it comes to EQ because there's just so much there. But I dipped out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas in my EQ that were just kind of sounded shitty. You know, the basic principles, if you're even a little bit familiar with EQing voiceover, is you turn your Q down real tiny, and you bring up the decibels real high, and you listen for those gross sounding feedbacks or sibilants or tonalities that sound real gross, and you crank it real down the opposite direction to then duck it out. You can duck it out by a little bit. Like on some of these, I'm only ducking it out by like under a full decibel. Some of them I'm ducking it to almost 9 or 4, which is a little aggressive, but it's just the way that my room sounds and my voice sounds in that room. Anyway, God, I get off topic fast. I need to put a marker here so that I can remember to go back and do this, but I'll show you a little test of what it sounds like with and without the vocal chain on that I have for this. So this is going to be with the vocal chain off. So now you're hearing the raw audio. And you probably can't hear the background noise too much because I have most of it turned off. Also have a compressor on here somewhere, but this is with everything turned back on. Hooray! It sounds so much better. Studio quality is pretty much there. It's not perfect. You're never going to get perfect when you're denoising. You're always going to get artifacting. I mean, unless AI denoising gets really, really, really good, it's hard to remove segments of audio and not be able to replace it with something. Like you can't, it's kind of like mass in science. You can't really take away. It doesn't quite work that way yet. There might actually be AI tools out there that are good enough, but when your background noise is to a certain extent, even trying to remove that is going to leave artifacts, and it's going to sound a little bit warbly in the background, if you know what I mean. Anyway, let me just take a quick note. I think it was around 665, just so I know when to go back and actually turn those effects off, unless I forgot, in which case it sounded no different at all. Tee-hee, haha. But that's pretty much it for my new content. I made a new song called Tangent, which is pretty funny considering I just went on a massive one 2 seconds ago. But Tanger, music extraordinaire. I'm sure you've heard of them. They have made a ton of tracks for Beat Saber. They've made a ton of tracks in general. But they're a very good producer. They make drum and bass, dubstep, hyper pop, more or less. They use a bunch of meme samples here and there in their songs, which is really funny. Anyway, she came out with a new pack called a snare pack. She made a snare pack and released it, her first official pack, and I thought it was really funny and really good. So I immediately was motivated to make a little beat out of it. And I went on her Discord and posted this little beat that I made just for fun in like 10 minutes. And people liked it, which is crazy because nobody ever sees my stuff usually. And that was pretty cool. So it motivated me to finish it. And it kind of gets into networking and all that. It's not totally networking, but it's a good example. I worked on it and I got the whole song finished, and that was a big, long process, but I liked the end result. And I went back like a month or two later and posted it again. It was like, hey guys, remember me? I finished the track. Here it is. And the same people were like, bro, this is fire. You got to release it on Spotify. And I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Tandra herself was also, she talked with me a little bit in the chat, and she thought it was cool. We talked a little bit about her snare pack, and some of the snares were funny. But yeah. Finally got it on Spotify after some issues. Unfortunately, there is a snare called Mark in her her snare pack, which is literally just a snare hit and then a full segment of Mark saying, hello, everybody, it's Markiplier. That's the entire sample. And I made the choice to put it into my track in the version that I sent to my publisher, which they did not like, and they told me they would not release my song unless I showed proof that that sample was not being used from, another person's copyrighted stuff. In reality, I don't think Mark would care, but I'm also not Mark and I can't speak for him. So I just chose to remove it completely, replace it with something and send it back. And then they were like, oh, that's fine, and approved. And then it finally got out on Spotify, which it is out on Spotify. Tangent by Noel, NU-11. But I went back and on Tanger's Discord again and was like, hey, it's out on Spotify now. And they liked it a lot. And I had some people who were like, showed their recent plays over the past week, and they had played Tanger like 30 times or some shit. And they said, hey, I think I like Tangent. I was like, thank you. But that one went pretty well. It's my first song that's had some outside views. I don't think it's really ever happened before, so that's cool. Interspersed with that, as long as my content goes, I made some TikToks and some YouTube shorts. I think one was an Instagram reel. They're all pretty much the same video, just posted on all the platforms, talking about working on the song and stuff like that. But as far as the YouTube goes, we haven't had too much activity. We've had the Tangent video, of course. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the kind of like vlog style videos. I don't really know what I want to do yet. I'm trying to figure it out, but I think I want to do some, I don't know. That's another thing I need to talk about, which I don't know if, I don't think I have it on here really. So I guess this is a good time to talk about it, but I'm trying to figure out what I want to do as far as my YouTube content. because I have talked about this before, but I really want to push for all of my content to make it into something that can be a career. I do all of this because I just love creating. I'm a very creative person, but I also would love to make money from it and to do this full time, which there's no way I can yet, but I'm trying to figure out what I should do. The songs, the music, obviously, that's an easy one. Keeping up with social media is a pain. I'm not as young as I used to be, and social media developed during my generation. However, I'm almost 26 now, and I'm not as hip and rad as I used to be with all of social media stuff. I think I'm relatively up to date with things, but as I get older, I care less about social media, and keeping up with it and coming up with things to post is a bit of a pain for me. And I would love to leave it all behind and not care, just post things when I finish them. But unfortunately, the career that I would like to pursue basically requires that you do that. So I'm gonna have to figure it out. I don't know what I want to do yet. I need to make content on my YouTube channel that is released semi often, that isn't just songs and nothing else. I could do that, but I don't want to only do that. So I have to figure out what I want to do. My fiance has given me some great advice, where she said, look at trends, look what other people are doing with similar kind of content, and try to do similar things with your own spin on it that will give you sort of a niche and pull in some views, which is just true of anything. That's kind of true with content creation in general. I've said it a million times, but I have been at this for a long time. I've been making shit ever since I was able to make shit when I was little. So I've been there, I've done that. I've just never really given it 300% to actually make it into a career. But one moment for sippies. But we'll see. I'm going to have to really think on that, figure out what I want to do for YouTube. I do Twitch now, which is cool. I really wanted to do that before. I talked about it, but now I am, which is super epic. But that's for a topic upcoming later in the podcast, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's pretty much it. I always think when I make these episodes, I'm like, damn, I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to record all this. And then I talk for 7 years. And I don't know how every time I think I'm not going to have enough content to fill an episode. But here we are almost 40 minutes in, and I haven't moved on. And I'm pretty sure if I remember, these episodes are about an hour. Yeah, so I have 20 minutes to finish this now, so I better get to work. So, oopies, and let's move on to topic number 1. Where have I been? Where the fuck have I been for a year, dude? Where? Well, about that, I actually forgot to mention in the content update, because I'm a silly little guy, I'm also working on a new EP, so keep that in the back of your head. It's called Example, and I've got 2 of the tracks relatively done-ish. I still have to do the third one just like last time, but it's coming, so come, Anyway, where have I been? In the last podcast I did, episode 6, which was a year ago, holy shit, I talked about, I have the scripts, I saved the scripts for every episode so I can still see it here. But I talked about similar things. I talked about wanting to do this for a career last time, but I also mentioned that I was relocating in my last podcast. I said, I'm peacing out to Florida. Well, I did, and I'm here now. And it took a while to get things up and running. I've had like a couple different jobs, and it took a while to settle into things in a way that I like. But holy shit, it's finally happened. Things are actually pretty consistent. Things aren't as much of a struggle. And I have time to actually make stuff again. So that's nice. But I have an apartment, which is where I am. That's a big one. That's a big thing. Before, I did not have anywhere. I mentioned it very offbeat one time in a previous episode because I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I was homeless. yeah, it is what it is. I was for like a whole year, basically lived in my car. I did live in my car. But that's not a thing anymore. I have an apartment and it's great. And I'm doing awesome. Very easy. I mean, it's not very easy. I work a lot to make things happen, but me and my partner do very well together, and we got a good system, and things are great. And things haven't been great for a while, and it's great that they're great now, and they've been great for about a year. So things are good. Things are good, which is a good thing to happen, because being able to say things are good in 2024 is honestly a really impressive achievement. And anybody who can say that, I'm very proud of you. So hooray. Hooray for that. Anyway, in the time that I've been away, I had a lot of time to think about what I wanted to do when I was able to make content again. And now I'm actually able to bring it into fruition, which I wasn't sure if it was going to happen, but it is happening. All very exciting things. But I have an apartment, which is crazy because it's my first apartment, but I love it. It's very small, but it works out, and I'm able to make things work because I always make things work. I finally have like a realistic amount of, I can finally get things that I need for my hobbies, which I never really was able to do before. I mean, we're talking really cheap stuff. Like I'm going to Craigslist and use refurbished things on Amazon for under like $50, under $10 sometimes. But it's like little things sprinkled in here or there that are slowly enabling me to do more and more and more, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And my setup is a different section that we'll get into. But it's exciting. We're getting there. I finally found a way to make content again. So I wanted to briefly look over some of the old points that I mentioned in the last episode and compare it to now, because I just thought it was interesting. When I listened to the last episode on the way home from work, I thought it was really interesting how what I thought might happen and what did happen. So let me go back to the script for the last episode, which I actually think I wrote over, which is ironic. I did. I'm a silly guy. I did a silly thing. You know what? Oh, well, I guess. I know I did talk about the Starclad EP that I was working on. I'm like, I wonder when I'll finish it. I wonder when I'll post it. The answer is never. Well, that's not true, actually. It did get posted. However, I put it onto my SoundCloud. Anything that I don't want to officially release or like officially, tie my name to, as an example of my current quality, I don't release anywhere else. That kind of stuff that's like, I made it and I don't want it to just be lost forever, so I want to have it somewhere. I dump it to SoundCloud. I put everything on SoundCloud, but that you'll find I have a lot more content on my SoundCloud than I do officially released on Spotify or YouTube or anything like that. So I put the first two tracks of the EP, Starclad EP, on SoundCloud. So if you want to listen to them, you can. But I have links everywhere to my SoundCloud, but they're okay. I have come so far in my producing abilities that I didn't feel that EP was a good representation of my quality anymore. So I decided not to release it, which was actually a pretty tough decision. I was excited to not only have released Tangent recently, but then out of the blue come forward after a little bit, soon after the last release, and be like, hey, now I have a 3-track EP out. But it wasn't up to snuff, as they say. Didn't like it. So that's okay. We got a new one that we're working on, and it will be out soon-ish, hopefully. We'll see. Probably like a month or two or more. I don't know. But let's keep moving because we're running out of time because I talked too much. Never mind. I lied. God damn. I did write over my last script, but I had saved that little section where I was like, hey, let's talk about my old points. I actually did save it because I thought ahead, which I didn't think that I thought, but I thought that I did. So I should have thought about that. Um, I mentioned before that I was going to Florida, which I did. And I was anxious. I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to continue the podcast. I mean, I was right. I didn't have a way to continue the podcast. Only as of today, really, can I, which I did, which we'll talk about in a minute. I didn't know if I was going to still be able to make videos, which, I mean, I didn't really. I didn't have a way to. And I'm still trying to figure that out, but we'll see about that. I thought about nothing else because that's it. That's it. We can move on. Holy shit. Finally. All right. Topic number 2. New setup, which I already mentioned briefly, but yes, I have a new setup. New setup is a bit of a deceiving way to describe it. However, it's technically true. So I mentioned before, I was using a G7 Dell gaming laptop I got on a discount, I think in 2017 or 2018. It's a piece of shit. It has not worked correctly since day one. It's been a lemon. It's had overheating issues. I briefly mentioned it, I think, somewhere before, but there were times when it was actually so hot that I thought it was going to stop melting, and I would put the power brick into the freezer. That happened once. That was fun. But it was not set up for content creation or gaming. It wasn't set up for anything because it doesn't work right. But that's what I was using for a long time. All the content that I made on my YouTube in like the past 2 years has been on that thing because I fucking broke my newer laptop trying to replace a fan. I accidentally fucked up the display ribbon cable. So my screen didn't work, and it's a laptop and I can't really use it without a screen. So my only way to use it was through my monitors. And when I didn't have a like desktop setup anymore, I couldn't use that laptop anymore because I didn't have an external monitor. But we fixed that now. Now that I have my own apartment, I have my desktop set up again. So it's able to use my much better gaming laptop that is more recent. It's great. It's great. It's like, it was struggling, but I actually took it apart. I dissected it. I literally took every single piece apart. I did a triple bypass on that poor gaming laptop and had it all on my desk. I cleaned every single area of it. I repasted it, which really helped it a lot. The thermal paste that was on there was crumbly and dry, like it was doing nothing. I replaced every single fan. I cleaned it out as good as I could. It was something like 30 degrees cooler after I did that, which is wild. You don't hear numbers like that on laptops very often, but it runs super quiet and super nice now. So I should have done that sooner. Teehee. But I gave it new life, which is great. So now it works 10 times better. But an issue that I'm finding today for the podcast is since I had everything based out of my old laptop, I need to find a way to get all the files off of that onto my new setup here, which is just a pain. I have ways of doing it, but all the hard drives are super slow. The USB transferred dongles that I have, like flash drives and stuff like that, don't hold very much. It's going to be a pain, but I'll have to figure it out so that I can edit properly. But man, it's going to be nice editing on the new setup because that old laptop, I could barely edit videos on that one. It would take multiple seconds to preview a video after I hit play, which was a pain. In the past, I had briefly mentioned there was a bit of a hack or a workaround to abusing the Ableton Live trial. It had to do with deleting some percent app data files and re-downloading the trial under a new account. You could just infinitely have the Ableton trial after 3 months when it would expire. That is now defunct. That doesn't work anymore. They patched the method for checking that you are not using multiple accounts, which sucked. So once I finally got in my apartment, I went to do that method and I was like, oh, I can't. Fuck. So I 100% acquired Ableton Live 11 by purchasing it. Yep, that's what I did. Definitely. So Haha. And I recommend doing what I did, wink wonk, because it works much better, and fuck those insane prices. What is wrong with you companies, greedy motherfuckers? Anyway, so now that I have Ableton 11 again, and a much better, more consistent version of it working on my laptop, I forget what I was going to say. I'm trying to look at my notes here. Anyway, the new setup's nice. I'm able to do things. I have a nice keyboard. I have my desk. Something that's cool, which I've always wanted to do, which I never had done in the past. I now have a dual monitor mount on my desk, which is so cool. I've always wanted to use a monitor mount, but for some reason, like VESA mounts have always scared me. Don't know why, just never did it. And I've been trying to make a whole effort in general in my life of just not fearing things. There's a fly in here, little bitch. Not fearing things and just doing it and figuring out it really wasn't that bad to begin with. So I did. And guess what? It was pretty cool and it wasn't hard at all. So I now have my old monitor on the left, which I think has been with me, oh man, for like a decade through multiple states, and I still have it. And then this monitor on the right, which an old iPhone is sitting on top of, currently recording this video because I don't have a good camera, but you know, phone cameras are really great these days. I have an old, I don't even know what this is, a VI93W. It's an old widescreen aspect ratio. The max it can output is 720. It can't even go to 1080. It's an old Acer desktop, office monitor. But the only thing I needed it for was just a second monitor to basically use for Discord and Twitch stuff and chat and things like that. So it doesn't matter that it's super wide and really old in 720p because I have it vertical, so I can have that nice text-based vertical display room, which is great. So my horizontal, or what is it, landscape on the left, portrait on the right, and it actually works really well. I'm in love with it. So I'm glad I did that. I need a better camera. I wanted to get into streaming really bad, and I have a little camera that I got from my partner that she used for like some Zoom meetings or something that she was doing. Oh man, it's ONN, the On brand. It's a piece of shit. It works horribly, but it does work. It's like 7 FPS, and the settings are horrible on it, but it works. I mean, I'm able to see myself on Twitch, which is nice, but I really want to get the Logitech C920 that everybody uses for a webcam for my streams. I'll get it eventually. I think refurbished. You can find it for $30 or something like that. So I'll pick one up at some point so it looks a little better. But I'll talk about that in a minute. I got a new mic arm, which you can probably see if you're watching on the second channel here. But my old mic arm was dying. It's nice to have a brand new one that, you know, stays where you put it. That's pretty refreshing. The desk that I have is a little bit too thick, so I had to scour Amazon, and it took hours to find a clamp adapter that was able to expand over 3 inches to accommodate the wide lip I have on this desk. But I found one, and I was able to shove this mount into the adapter and make it work. So that's nice. I used Craigslist for the first time for actually buying something. I've been wanting to do that for a long time. I've been wanting to use Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist to build a budget PC, an actual desktop. I'm actually still want to do that, but I never did. I haven't been able to really, but I've always wanted to just kind of get stuff for real cheap off Craigslist because I don't really mind if it's been used before. Sure enough, I went to find a second monitor and was shocked to find that they're still pretty expensive. People say they're cheap, but I don't think $100 to just drop is very cheap for me. I think that's still rather a decent amount of money. So I was pleasantly surprised to find the second monitor that I have in portrait was only $10. So I messaged the guy, he messaged me back, and I drove about 30 minutes and picked it up after work for $10, handed him $10 in cash, and went on my way. And it's great. I got really, really lucky. By the way, it's really old. Like I said, it's VGA only. There is no other input on this thing. It's not HDMI. So to use it with my laptop, I had to get a DisplayPort to VGA adapter and then actually buy a VGA cable. I never thought I would buy a VGA cable in 2024. I could have sworn in the massive like rat's nest of cables I still have from over the years, I would have had a VGA, but I didn't. So I actually bought a brand new VGA cable in 2024, which was crazy. Also got lucky that my mini DisplayPort to VGA adapter worked. And I was lucky that I had a mini DisplayPort on my laptop because I don't have two HDMI ports or a VGA port. And unfortunately, if your signal source is coming from VGA, you can't go from VGA to HDMI when the signal source is from VGA. You can do it in reverse. You can go from HDMI signal source and convert it to VGA, but not vice versa. As far as DisplayPort cares, it can go either way. You can have VGA source to DisplayPort or DisplayPort to VGA. I think. Don't quote me on that. However, thankfully, my source was mini DisplayPort, so hooray. Anyway, let's go on to our last section because we are out of time. You know, it's okay that we're a little bit over because it's been a while, but we still got like, oh, I'm wrong, by the way. I forgot this counter doesn't count down. I only spent like 20 minutes on the intro. I thought I had spent like 40 minutes. Silly me. We still have like 20 minutes left, but we'll be fine. Anyway, our last section, topic number 3, streaming. I talked about this before, which you are all aware of, but I've been wanting to Twitch stream for a long time now. A lot of the way that I got into like actually committing to producing was watching producing Twitch streamers. There were a couple guys that I used to watch. I used to watch like a ton of Bishu. Sugar Bear, stop. The rat is being loud. I used to watch a lot of Eliminate, which I still do sometimes, but mostly I would watch these guys on YouTube. But a lot of their YouTube videos were made off of their streams, which is a great idea. Super awesome way to reuse your content and easier for you to get views and money off of just doing something once and getting multiple versions of content out of it. Peach Monter. Anyway, made me really want to do it. I did streaming in the past, which you may know. I used to go by the alias of Studio Giblets. I had a whole animation channel. Talked about all this before too. But I used to stream. I streamed for, I think it was in like 2020 to 2021, something like that. I streamed for a good while. I didn't blow up or anything. I mean, I barely had any following at all. But I actually was lucky enough to see growth of any kind, which is really cool because, you know, I've seen a lot of people who stream really consistently and don't have that kind of luck. And I just got randomly lucky. But, you know, I had a couple people who would pop in every now and then that were actual, I had some lurkers, but I actually had some, what's the word, man? Oh, brain. When you go to a coffee shop every day and the barista's like, oh, it's Jim. I know Jim. Holy shit. I don't know. Can't think of the word. Love it. But we had some people who would come around every often that I actually knew, and they'd pop in every now and then. It was cool. I enjoyed it a lot. I really liked streaming, and I wanted to get back into it ever since I stopped, and now I have a chance to. So I have been. I think I've done 2 streams now, maybe 3 in about 2 weeks. So that's not too bad. Now these streams are like almost exclusively like producing streams, which is fine. That's the kind of stuff that I want to do. But I really want to get some upgrades. I'm not quite there for like the streaming setup that I want. I have my old, well, not old, but the shitty on-branded camera that I talked about, the webcam. It's real bad. It does not look good, but I'm just like, I'm a little rectangle in the corner, in the bottom left corner right now in my streams. So it's not the end of the world. But I really want to do green screen because I don't need to have a background. And I don't like the real estate that having a rectangle takes up. So that's another thing that I really want to get. I want to get a green screen. I want to get the Logitech C920 so that my camera quality is better. But more importantly, I want that 30 FPS or 60 if it can do that. I don't care. Anything is better. Anything is better than 7 FPS. 30 FPS is fine for me. I mean, cinema is only 24. So 30 FPS is just a little green screened guy on the bottom left is fine. I don't really need anything more than that. And I think I stream in 720 because my computer is, you know, older. Even this newer laptop is still not the best. So I don't even stream in 1080. So it doesn't matter if my camera can do 1080 or not, because I'm a little guy in the corner in 720p streams, so it don't matter. My dream setup one day would be a third monitor. I'd like my central monitor kind of in the center, my portrait monitor off to the side, and then another monitor like above those two, kind of in the center, another portrait monitor, or excuse me, another landscape monitor. That would be great. That with an actual camera. I would like a tripod and an actual camera. As far as cameras go, I know some stuff. I don't know a whole lot. That's something that I'll have to familiarize myself with. I know a lot of people, I think, use DSLRs, which is fine. I know that's a very standard camera that a lot of people pick up, whichever variant they choose when they first get into photography and shooting and stuff like that. My brother knows a lot about cinema and stuff like that since he majored in it in video production. So I will probably go to him for what camera I should use. But eventually I would love a solid tripod and a camera that's just kind of peeking over one of my main landscape monitors to really get that quality. I'd like a nice background for when I don't want the green screen on. That'd be cool. But yeah, one day when I'm not in a little studio apartment, I would love to have a dedicated room for my setup, just for gaming and making content and stuff like that. One day we'll get there. But I could treat it so that it's sound treated. That would be great. I could finally get the mic that everyone has, the Shure SM7B, probably the cloud lifter that everyone gets, or what would be nice is to have one of those boosters built into the audio interface. I have some that I'm eyeing, so I don't have to have multiple pieces of hardware. I don't need a Stream Deck, an Elgato Stream Deck. That's something that's pretty cool that I'm running. On my current streaming setup, I basically have a Stream Deck. I talked about this on stream once, but there is a app that has been made, an open source program known as Touch Portal, which you can put onto an old phone that you don't use. I have, well, it's ironic. I have an S22, just base model that I got, which I should have never listened to the AT&T salesman. Hate that guy. But I traded in, I don't even know what I had, S9 Plus, I believe, for the S22 base model. Worst decision of my life. I hate that phone. S22 base model is horrible. It barely worked. It worked great for like a month, maybe a year, and then it just, you know, it's almost as bad as my previous phone, which is saying something. Anyway, horrible. Hated it. I ended up buying, right here, an S10 Plus, which I had wanted before. What I wanted to do was upgrade from the S9 Plus to the S10 Plus. I didn't care about an S22, which is like the newest flagship base model. I don't care about that. But they roped me in. They did their salesman bullshit. They said, oh, we'll put you on a finance deal, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't have done it. Don't do it, boys. Don't do it. Get those old used phones from like Swappa, SWAPPA. Great place to buy used phones. That's how I got this one. Man, downgrading to the S10 Plus was the best decision of my life. It's nice and big and it works great. Highly recommend. So ironically, my old phone is now the S22. But anyway, I use this little guy here as my Stream Deck. It's got my old custom phone case that I made before I really had a logo that I like. So it looks kind of bad, but it's there. But I take this little guy and I run the app on it. I don't have it open right now, but it's basically a Stream Deck. I have all the buttons. You can completely customize everything. Everything is custom from the ground up. You can adjust the amount of buttons on the screen, the size, the text, the logos, the images, literally everything. You can program routines. It's great. So I basically have a virtual Stream Deck that runs in landscape mode sitting in front of me on my desk that I can press to do anything. So I don't need a Stream Deck. They're nice and polished and cool. Like maybe one day if I can, but there's no really need to. Like Touch Portal is great. So highly recommend if you can use it. It ties directly into OPS with a webhook. I have it switch my scenes. I have it starting in my stream. I have a second page of buttons, which opens every single one of my socials individually. So it's really easy to post stuff. It's great. Please, I highly recommend Touch Portal. It's awesome for that kind of stuff. As far as streaming goes in general, though, I'm just producing streams. Like I said, I've been considering like doing interactive content. Twitch is real good for that, obviously. I used to see a lot of the Twitch/YouTube producers that I watched that I mentioned would do that kind of content. I know Nate from Eliminate does like, what does he call it? Oh, I don't remember. It's the, like, I don't know how often he does it, weekly, maybe the battle, like the music making battles where they all use the same sample, and then they make a song out of it. I know some other content producer creators like that will have submissions where they'll take in songs from their chat and they'll kind of give their feedback and stuff like that. A whole bunch of interactive stuff that you can do. You can do videos where you make a song completely out of samples submitted by your following, which sounds super fun. That kind of stuff. I would love to do that kind of stuff. But the thing with that is that requires an audience to interact with, which at the current moment, I don't have nearly enough of, or really at all. So if we get to that point, that'd be cool. I'd like to do that stuff, but I can't make like a Doug style video where I'm interacting with a bunch of people when there are no people. So we'll get there eventually. For now, I'll have to start off with like some more basic stuff where I'm establishing a challenge or rule set for myself and then making something within those limits until those limits can be imposed by other people, which will get really silly and crazy and funky and fun, but we'll get there at some point. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the streaming content section. The only reason I really thought about it, again, I kind of forgot about it, was I saw Grabbits was live at some point on Twitch. I was like, oh yeah, I never even thought about him doing streaming. And I didn't watch it much. I originally even thought to check because I saw Grabbits and Nate Eliminate did a stream together, which I thought was pretty cool. Grabbits is pretty well established in the EDM scene now. He's made quite a name for himself. He's done a lot of collabs with other people, and his own music has gained tons of popularity. So he's no longer like a smaller creator anymore. But to see him and Nate do stuff together was pretty fun. There's two people that I knew that I kind of followed individually. But I really like the way he had his Twitch set up. It's very clean, very simple. I think he does 2 streams a week, which are both really late. He starts them at 10 p.m. EST, which I'm well in bed before because I have to be real up early for my day job. But eventually I'll watch one probably at some point. But I like the way he had it set up, so that made me want to get back into streaming. So I did. But yeah, I've been thinking about maybe doing gaming content. I don't know. You know, I really don't want to mix too much. That's been a big problem with my content in the past. You really, really don't want to mix tons and tons of different styles of content into the same YouTube channel or Twitch, because people are going to develop a following around one thing that you do, maybe multiple, But if you start switching it up constantly, you're not going to retain, the same amount of people because they're like, oh, I only came over to watch such and such. Damn. Holy shit. Hey, remember when I said I live close to the apartment entrance? Yeah. Jesus Christ. Y'all got the subwoofer pumping. Smile. Anyway, yeah. So I would love to do some gaming stuff, maybe some gaming streams. I legitimately don't know if I could. I do not know if my computer can handle playing Helldivers and streaming it at the same time, because sometimes it gets 30 FPS when it's a real crazy mission and with tons of explosions. So who knows? Maybe sometimes it'd be nice to stream, but I really don't know if I'll do it for gaming or not. Maybe till I get a better setup. Anyway, that about wraps us up for today. We're about at 55. I try to keep these in an hour, so a little bit rambly, but I've been out of this for a year, so we're back on our podcast game, which is great. Peach Monter. But that brings us to our last and final section, which you will all come to know so well, which is questions section. So as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast in the past, we have a Gmail set up that you can send in questions to, which is nu11sectorpodcast@gmail.com. All that I ask is that in the subject line, you put whatever you want your name to be. Could be anything. I don't care. -podcast question. That's it. That's all you have to put in the subject line. And then in the body of the email, type in anything you want. Don't care. You can cuss me out if you want to. But ask some questions, give feedback. We'll talk about it next time during this section. And that's pretty much it for that. So it's that time, boys. Thanks for the immaculate vibes, for hanging with me. And I will see you not next week, but the week after that. We are switching to a 2-week release schedule so that I can work on all my content and also do my day job, because I do a lot of hours at that one. So we're going to switch the podcast over in this new era to 2-week podcasts, but that's okay. That's a little bit more normal anyway. 1-week podcast is a lot. As always, you can find the audio version of this podcast on Spotify, Anchor, and Pocket Casts, and the video version on my second channel, which is NU-22. Keep an eye out for all my other forms of content. My main YouTube channel, NU11, NU-11, but you're all aware of that. My Twitch, which is now able to be watched. I'm finally on Twitch, boys, which is NU_11 official. TikTok, NU11 official. Spotify, NU-11. Twitter, @official, NU_11. My subreddit, which, we don't really use it all, but that's okay. NU-11 space sector. My second channel, of course, which NU-22. That is all. I will see you next Monday. Well, nope, that's not right, because we're doing 2 weeks. I will see you next Monday. Love y'all. Peace out. Be cool, homie, bro, guys. Bye bye. Bye bye bye.
NU-11. No.
Sector Podcast. Pain.